Hello, creatives. I'm Eddie Lane, and I have a mullet now. Today, we're going to talk about setting. Setting is so much more than where your story takes place. Setting is when your story takes place, how close around a big event it might be, how the society is going to react to your main character's moves. And setting is the obstacles that get in the way of your hero's journey. So come along with me and explore setting. Without setting, Harry Potter is just a boy who gets bullied at school, and A Song of Ice and Fire is just another English history lesson. Frodo Baggins doesn't even exist without setting, right? Also, I know that there's a greater description or a really good description of hobbits at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, so I know that they exist, and it has something to do with golf. Setting. Setting is the place where we writers can really shine, and our crazy imaginations can really show what we're capable of. Setting is where we take a general story arc and actually turn it into something very individual and unique to ourselves. We need to feel like we're really in prison, the monotony of time and the losing of all our loved ones along the way. Or we're in a brand new land that we can't explain and we don't understand yet. We need to explore it. Or fearing for the lives of our loved ones based on the consequences of what we're about to do. We set the stage, we win our readers' trust, and we show them the boundaries and the rules of this new land. Readers know that they can trust you to work within these boundaries if you're doing it right. A really good example of social consequences was when Cersei had to take her walk of shame through King's Landing. See, whether we as readers knew it or not, we were expecting a proper social backlash for her actions. In this way, our stakes can grow higher and our readers will actually believe and experience that same stress that our main character is feeling. Because we've gained their respect and their trust. They understand that we know the social boundaries of our world. And no social reaction is like, if you've ever seen a bad movie where there's an extra standing there and something horrible is going on, and the main characters are reacting, but the extra is just like, where's my burger? When's the next break? That sort of thing. That takes us out of the story. That's why a lot of people didn't appreciate the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones. Cersei did an even bigger uh-oh, and there was no reaction. What made Game of Thrones so great in the beginning was that Ned Stark had to adhere to these social boundaries, and that we all got to see what happens when he didn't. So if we take an example of something that was done really well, The Crucible by Nathaniel Hawthorne was infuriating to me as a reader and a watcher when I watched the movie. It was compelling, and you really felt for the people. You felt how stupid some of the people were, and you really got caught up in the setting of it all. The crazed sort of witch hunting, which is where we get that term from now, that crazy paranoia that fled over everybody. And a lot of historians have said it came from boredom. And if you read The Crucible, you can kind of get that feeling that they understood what was causing this story to take place, which is a great thing to put into your setting in the first place. Where your story begins, what has caused the world to look the way it does up until that point. You don't have to know an entire history, of course. That would be... I've done that too. And it could be never ending. So you just have to know what sorts of things have happened in your world that have caused the society to be the way it is, and how is that going to affect your main character? So how do you choose the proper setting? Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind. What is a setting you already know about? For instance, I can describe how the cold feels in like 50 different ways because I live in a country that is very, very cold. And I'm able to express that in many different feelings. It also influences how people in this part of the world survive, as well as the clothes they wear and how they look most of the time. It definitely has influence on our past and the people who lived here before settlers came. Next up, what do you want to know about? Is there an event or a place in the world or a place in your imagination that you want to explore more? Is there something that you've already gotten hashed out a little bit and you just need to come up with the people that live there? If you put these hand in hand, a character and a setting together, and the way they influence and aid one another as the character grows, you'll have a world that is filled with depth. No. You'll have a cohesive world and story coming together in that character. Because when you go to that character, you're going to find the motive. That's probably what we're going to work on next week. But once you get your setting and your character together, you can start working on that motive. One way you can change what people expect from setting, you can take an established story structure, like the hero's journey, and throw it into an all-new setting, like an asylum. Remember that setting can set the tone at the beginning of the story, as well as reintroduce that tone at the closeout of the story. Setting is the great glue that holds the book of your spine together. What are some of my favorite settings in the world? Is the first Chronicles of Narnia, of course, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, I could just feel Lucy going through those coats and getting into the trees. You could just feel that happening. In all those moments, you're capturing who Lucy is. You're capturing the magic that is happening in the back of the wardrobe. And you're also capturing the setting that she has just walked into. And suddenly it's cold. And suddenly she's in a land of eternal winter. The next thing that comes along is she stops at a softly lit lamplight in the snow. I don't know, I just get shivers when I think of that. That's just... Then Mr. Tumnus comes along and invites her into his cozy little cave where he gives her tea and he plays her a little flute song and tries to kidnap her, which is something. But I would love to live in that little cave with Mr. Tumnus, especially James McAvoy. That feeling. But you also knew deep in that little cozy cave, safe from all the winter around Lucy and Mr. Tumnus, that there was still a legend out there, a legend of Aslan and the witch lady. You could still feel that within that cave. That is a true setting setter. I think C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were friends, and I think that they definitely collabed about that way of feeling because, again, I love the coziness of being in the certain situations that C.S. Lewis puts you in. If you can go over to J.R.R. Tolkien, you can think of the coziness of the Shire. This is obviously a person who knew a pastoral setting, going over to a pub and getting in trouble there by talking a little bit too much about your situation. This is all setting related, and it's all so well done that it has become almost cliche to this point. That's why it's important to switch things up when it comes to setting as well. One of my favorite recent authoresses and YouTubers is Alexa Dunn. She took the classic story of Jane Eyre and had it happen on transports in space, which I think is excellent. There's also the Marissa Claire Casanova Casadea Meyer, which are fairy tales retold involving cyborgs and robots and science fiction. Fascinating. As a person who likes to read a good fairy tale retelling, this was so refreshing. Of course, there are some settings that are so classic that they set their own new cliches. Harry Potter, for example. Dune is another. I'm a big fan of the Blade Runner Alien series. I love this perspective, new future with the doom and the gloom. This is all trend setting stuff. So if you can nail the setting well enough, you could just start a new movement. Now, for an activity, take your favorite story ever and turn it into a haunted tale. What happens to your characters? Who's the bad guy? Do they end up banishing the spirits in the end? Is it a murder mystery? How does the setting change? Or does it? Please let me know down below because I will reply. And that's about it for setting. I will see you next time when we explore motive for your character and continue on this Preptober journey. Is your eternal... Today we're going to talk about settings. Setting is so... I said settings. Over. Today we're going to talk about settings. God. Is it... Oh... Setting. People are going to know I haven't read this. Like a lot of pulp. Like a lot of other I gotta stop drinking pop while I do